All right, Ambassador, we want to thank you for being in our studios once again. Always wonderful to see you.
My pleasure.
Yes. Now, we want to talk about culture and economic development. So we are thinking that there's perhaps a link, there's some sort of a connection, it seems, between, or is there a connection between culture and economic development? Because we see that some countries tend to do well, some nations, some economies tend to do well, while others don't tend to do quite as well. You know, we try to explain these things by normal forces that we know, by looking at specific indicators that we know, but we have not really spent a lot of time, especially in this part of the world, to try to see if there is a connection between economic growth and culture. So I know that you are very well experienced in these kinds of areas. You've talked on issues like this in the past, and we thought we should speak to you. We should consult you, as it were, to see. Let's tap from your experience to see whether you think there is a connection between culture and underdevelopment as a way of trying to understand why Africa has sort of lagged behind in economic development. Ambassador.
Thank you very much, and I'm also grateful that you've thought about this very salient but silent aspect of our being as Africans. Culture and economy are linked because culture is a way of life of a people. Their customs, their traditions, the continuity of their being, a people. That's what their culture is. It doesn't have an end. It has a beginning. It has a continuity. But they have to give it a lifeline. And that is where development comes in. Development has to give life to culture so that a people's way of living, a people's way of being develops as the people move on. If there's a hiatus between the people's way of living and their development, then there's a crisis, and Africa has it today.
Africa has a hiatus between what?
Between their way of living and world development that has engulfed them.
Okay.
And that's why Africa is lagging behind.
Okay.
Africa used to live rather harmoniously before colonization came.
Did you say Africans or communities, villages?
Yes, they are the people that constitute Africa.
Okay. But I mean, it's not like somebody in Namibia was doing anything with somebody in Nigeria.
And
it just
probably not at that level.
Yeah.
Somebody in Namibia was living well.
Yes.
Somebody in Nigeria was living well.
Yes.
Mind you, when you go to archaeology, you will see the beginnings of science, of knowledge, of astrology and all that starting in Africa.
Absolutely.
And then we have things that happened 6,000 BC records of how Africans were living.
Sure.
Good. Then we experienced colonization.
Yeah.
And it's because we were not as inquisitive as these other beings in other continents. Inquisitive in the sense that their environment made them develop certain things we weren't looking for. Means of forceful seizure of other people's property. Which
when you say their environment, are you talking about climatic conditions, weather, things like
environment.
that?
Our own environment is a complacent environment that made us live in complacency.
Okay.
So when these two cultures met, we were subjugated into being underdogs. But then
how? Why?
Why? If you had a means of destroying people's lives en masse, and I don't have, and you apply it to me, normally I would succumb.
I mean, they had the gun.
Yeah, we didn't have the gun of mass and rapid destruction. And they had it. Okay. When these two cultures met and we went into subjugation, our way of living, our culture also went into subjugation. So we had to talk like our masters, dress like our masters, eat like our masters. And of course, during the Berlin Conference, when Africa was now restructured on a piece of paper, when they said, okay, Professor Kpakol, you are in charge of this, Njoku, you take this, the other man take this. That is when another phase of our problem started. Those were markets created for these colonialists. They give you a chunk of Africa, it becomes your market. Market to sell your beliefs, to sell your language, to sell your wares, to sell your culture, to sell your means of transportation. And unfortunately, we've not been able to wriggle out of it today.
How come we didn't have an upper hand at that time, at that moment? How come they had the upper hand over us? I mean, we didn't have our own things that we could have used to fend them off as they started to impose themselves upon us. We didn't have a way of doing that. That means we were not developed even then too. We were underdeveloped even before they came.
Development then has to be defined. Is development, even up to now, I still question this development.
Yes.
You go to the United Nations, the 5 people that have strong weapons of mass destruction are the developed ones. So they are the permanent members of the Security Council. Morally, to me, it is wrong. It is not the man who does more havoc. That should be respected more. The man should be condemned. And what they're doing now is, if you from Kpakol country develop a similar weapon, they find a way to destroy you and your weapon, so that the 5 remain there as the superpowers. That was what happened to us.
They don't want proliferation.
No, they don't want, not only proliferation, they don't even want any other person to be like them. It's not just proliferation.
No, because they're looking towards ultimate disarmament.
This is what they give us as reason. Why don't they destroy all their armaments and then we stay equal? But the point I'm making is that when these guys came to us, they already had instruments which we didn't have, and we call it development. That appellation, development, has its question marks. It is immoral development. It's plaguing the world today. That the man who has stronger arms is the man who is more developed.
Is culture the platform for economy, or can you use economy and culture interchangeably? And I'm being loose now as an economist. I have to be careful myself, trying to force this. But I'm starting to think, if you look at the so-called Western culture, and you look at the history of thought, if you read the history of economic thought, Western culture, you read Popper, you read John Rawls, you read Aristotle, Max Weber, all these different people, Adam Smith. That seems to me that's how they decided what do you need to be a strong economy. So they built a culture, it seems to me, that drove economic performance. So you had the so-called we had Calvinism, the Puritan work ethic, or some people call it puritanical work ethic.